Well, happy Monday to you, Braveheart men. Today I want to talk about the topic of humility because I really have come into a greater understanding as I walk more and more with God about how crucial it is for our lives, our spiritual journey, who we are becoming as men, and how we do that with excellence. You know, there's a famous quote by C.S. Lewis. He says that humility isn't thinking less of oneself, it's thinking of oneself less. As a Grow pastor, I happened to have the opportunity to oversee a lot of life groups, and my team decided to redefine the definition of humility. And what we arrived on was stepping into the fullness of who you are, no more, no less. Now that does two things. Typically when you think of pride or arrogance, it's the superiority of things. But thinking of yourself no more, no less also is a challenge to not think less of ourselves or to play small in what God has called us to do. You know, it's twofold. It's one, to not partner with arrogance, to not partner with, you know, the lofty dreams or plans that we have to create a level of superiority, to look down at others that maybe we think have dreams that are less than ours. But at the same time, it also requires us to own the greatness inside of us. Pride has two sides to the coin, inferiority and superiority. And so if we play small and we don't own the greatness inside of us, we don't own the gifts or the strengths that God has called us to, we're also doing a huge disservice, and we're actually not operating in humility. I think that the church at times has created only the arrogance piece of things, but there's also the other side of that coin, which is playing smaller than what God has called us to. There's a verse in Proverbs, it's Proverbs 11:2. It says, "When you act with presumption, convinced that you're right, don't be surprised if you fall flat on your face, but humility leads to wisdom." I don't know about you, but I always want to be in a continual pursuit of wisdom, of learning, of teaching, of accountability. And what humility allows us to do is to be correctable, is to be teachable, is to be in a place where we're always taking feedback and how people are experiencing us and how we can grow. Because if we shut that down in our lives, we're also shutting out a huge piece of how God can grow us, because He plays a role in that. Community plays a huge role in that. The intentional route of learning and our ability to continually grow as people plays a huge role in that. And so this piece of humility isn't just a piece of fruit to be attained or achieved. It's a continual pursuit with God. It's a heart posture that says, I always want to be learning. I always want to be growing. I always want to be becoming more than I am right now. And I truly can't do that if I think I've arrived. Or I truly can't do that if I think my voice or my opinion is absolutely right and everyone else is wrong. It's actually, it's almost like a heart posture of saying, hey, if I sit down at a table with royalty, am I going to sit at the head of that table because I think I deserve that place? Or am I going to choose a seat that's lower than mine and be invited up, because that's where humility is? It says I'm going to take a seat lower than myself and allow someone to call me up higher if that's what they want to do, or if that's what God's going to call me to do. But it's allowing myself to be in a place of, am I teachable? Am I correctable? Am I choosing to be self-aware enough to realize where I'm wrong, or where I can get it right moving forward? Can I own my mistakes? Can I be self-aware? Self-awareness and humility are the only ways that we can do that. The other thing I would say about humility is, if you're finding yourself in a tough season or a tough place, humility is one of the quickest ways to accelerate that season. Not in a way that it requires or it allows us to be shortcutting something, but if we have ourselves in a place of humility, what that does is it puts our heart and our mind in a place that says, all right, God, I'm not trying to shortcut this process, but what I am going to do is be intentional as possible to get what you have for me, so that I'm not going around the mountain over and over again, not getting what you actually intended for me to step into or grow into, so that I'm ready and prepared to step into the fullness of what you have for me in the next season. So that's what humility does. It accelerates the process, not by shortcutting it, but being so intentional by beelining and being focused on what God has for us to get in this season. It's the fastest way for us to be assured that we will be prepared for the fullness of the more that God has for us to step into. So I say all that to say, you know, I think about biblical characters that I can draw that inspiration from, or those examples from. King David was humble. Joshua was humble. It's actually what allowed him to lead God's people into the promised land. I think of Saul as he transitioned to Paul, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. It was that humility that allowed Paul to become one of the greatest mouthpieces for God in the history of humanity. And all of these things are possible, and they have one linear commonality in the way I see it, and what God's shown me is humility. It's humility. Will we humble ourselves before the Lord? Will we allow others to correct us, to teach us? Will we allow God to correct us and teach us? Because if we can have that heart posture and that mindset that God, this season might be hard, it might be difficult, but I know you're doing a work and you have my yes in this. It will grow us. It will accelerate us in the season that we're in. It will define us. It will mature us. It will deepen us to prepare us for what's next. So the question that I have for us is this: how well do I receive feedback, correction, or allow myself to be taught? How well can I carry my own greatness and the fullness of what I have, my gifts, my strengths, my knowledge, my wisdom, and also keep myself from thinking I'm more valuable or better than anyone else? It's hard to hold those things in balance, but if we can keep ourselves in check and also keep ourselves in a place of humility, we can thrive in a way that maybe we've never thrived before, or step into something or a breakthrough that we've never had before, because that's the place where God can do the most work. And that's where we can accelerate the most from any position we're in any season we're in, or anything that we're facing. So I want to encourage you guys with that, and just let that be a challenge to us to really ask ourselves and really put ourselves in a place of self-reflection of how well am I walking those things out? How well am I inviting those voices into my life? How well am I inviting God's voice in that aspect into my life? So my challenge to you is to step into that, to take that to God, to take that to the Creator, and see what He has to say about it. Find out where you are in that space and how you can partner with that in a way that accelerates what you're facing or what you're dealing with in this season right now. Appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Have a happy Monday, and we'll see you soon.